So welcome to everyone who's joined. So we've got Catherine and we've got Lori. Thank you for joining. We've got the wonderful Angela and my sweet Brie, who is here. Okay, so you just accepted me. And we just want to welcome everyone to this second episode of First Defense, which was Brie's and my love child.
Yes, well said.
Yeah, it's our love chat. So for people who don't know Brie and me, like we have been hosting clubhouses together for the FDN, and FDN stands for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. And we're going to be talking about how functional diagnostic nutrition and functional health labs and all these things can kind of elevate your health experience and your overall experience of whatever condition you might be going through. And I've invited Angela because she and I were having this offline conversation a week or two ago, where we were sort of like frustrated when people can't see, like, all you have to do is make a couple of little changes and your life will start to turn around. Like it's not rocket science, and you don't have to be dependent on medication. And, Angela is a hormones or thyroid expert, actually, more thyroid than anything else. And Angela, do you feel like sharing a little bit about your story?
Yeah. So I actually got diagnosed when I was 22. I'm 44 now. Went through about a 15-year battle. It was a very fun battle. And I stumbled upon FDN, which is what I got certified in. And that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to take my own health in my own hands. It was too long of a battle and I was miserable, and I was thrown on so many medications and nothing was working. So that's when I got certified in FDN and functional diagnostic nutrition. And now I help women do the same thing. And it's been pretty cool to watch the changes and the things that can happen. And I can totally relate to them. That's the coolest part, is I'm like, I went through that. I felt that. I feel that. So it's really cool to see the changes that people can make by utilizing functional medicine.
So I know that your story is so similar to Brie's and my story, like in terms of all the things that we went through with conventional doctors and traditional lab work and all the things that they couldn't find. Like there was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. But how do we talk to people who are going through that now? Like, how do we help them understand that, okay, so you might be going through a pretty scary time where there are lots of unknowns and lots of variables that might be confounding, particularly people who are on lots of medications. Because I think that's sort of like the standard of care is, well, you've got X symptom, please take this pill. And then we start
forever.
Yeah, exactly, Brie. And I wanted to say that this session, by the way, was going to be unfiltered.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. That's a good disclaimer.
Disclaimer. This is unfiltered. So, taking this pill means that, okay, well, how many pills do we end up on? And 4 years ago when I started WellWorks, I had to write an article for the Huffington Post on the cost of healthcare. And when I looked at like, okay, we are spending, I don't know, like £25,000 per person, like for a 20-year period. That's it. Like most people are on a medication by the time they're 40 until, let's say 20 years, they're 60. And then usually that one medication creates the need for multiple medications. So it's not just one. So, you're spending £25,000 or whatever that is, like $35,000, right? In 20 years on just one pill. That's going to have side effects. So I wanted us to talk about the costs of like, not just like the financial cost to being unwell, but let's like examine and explore some of the other costs that we've seen and experienced as well.
Yeah. So that's one thing that, I can personally vouch for that as well. I mentioned that I had, they were trying to put me on so many medications at that time. They first obviously started with thyroid medication. And I kept getting worse. I was feeling terrible. So then they decided to put me, you need an antidepressant. Oh, you need an anti-anxiety, by the way, too. So all these medications just kept compounding. And I started noticing the more medications that I went on, the worse I felt. And so that's when I was like, this is insane, because I'm starting to feel worse from these medications. Then it wasn't only that, it wasn't just like the cost, the actual cost of the medications was insane, compiling over the years of that. But, I just felt like I started losing like time on my life. I had, gotten into such a depression. The anxiety was through the roof. I didn't want to leave the house because, I felt horrible. I was miserable. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was overweight. Nothing was working. And so, I didn't even want to go to work. When I first got diagnosed, I was practicing as a full-time physical therapist, and I was newer. I mean, I was fresh out of college. So I was like, I can't even function for my own job. So it's just all these things compounded. And that's one thing that when I talk to a lot of my clients, they start telling me these same types of stories. They're like, okay, I can't hold down a job. I work with numerous women right now, actually, who cannot hold down a job because they can't function enough to hold down a job. And all they are is just throwing on more medications. The average number of medications when women come to me that they're on is usually about 4 to 5. That's average. And all of those have side effects. The tough part with that is they don't know any other way. They only know I'm just going to take these medications because I don't know any other way. And then when I, start talking to them about, okay, but can you see some of these things that are happening? You started all these medications. Let's look at a timeline here. Did you get any better? How much worse did you get? And they start looking back and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm worse than when I started on all these medications. Why am I doing this? Now, obviously with medications, I'm like, okay, we're going to work with the doctor here when it comes to the medications. But my point of that is that, so many people are just told, take these pills. This is going to fix it. But they don't look at, but why are you in that position? Why are you even there? Why do you have these symptoms that that the doctor wants to make you take medication for? Why are you there in the first place? If you don't look at that, you start to lose. And that's what I was saying. I was literally losing time in my life because I was like, I don't know how I can live this way. I can't hardly work. I can't hardly do anything. And different things. I was avoiding going to events. I was avoiding all these things that I should have been going to because I was exhausted and all I wanted to do was lay in bed and sleep. So, and I know that a lot of people can relate to that. And that's, to me, when you start losing function and you start losing just life in general, to me, that's the worst cost right there.
I think that's an important distinction that we're talking about. The word cost in this title that we have is not just applicable to finances, although that does play a huge role into why people shun away from holistic treatments and will just stay on their medications because it's cost effective for them because it's covered by insurance, right?
Right.
And that's not the only cost that we're talking about. Like you mentioned in your story, it's the cost of life, for a lot of people who don't understand that, yes, while these medications could potentially be helpful or, get them out of the dark place over time, they are still having side effects that are directly affecting the functional foundations of how our organs, systems, and cells are working. Yep. And over time, it's more of a cost of health and functionality than it is helping them, right? And that's our goal as functional practitioners is, yes, it's expensive. Point blank, it's expensive. Yeah. We have to order our lab work. And unfortunately, it's not it's not covered by insurance because our medical system is ass backwards, but that's just my opinion.
So that was something that I wanted to get into because someone asked me about that the other day. She said, well, why won't my doctor run these labs? I'm like, he doesn't even know they exist.
Right. They never, in fact, it's funny that you said that because I just started working with a new client and she was telling me that she mentioned to her doctor, and I hear this a lot. These are the labs that, I'm going to run with this practitioner I'm working for and are working with, and they never heard of them. So if they don't know them, then how the heck are the patients going to know them? If the doctors don't even know them, they're just not, they're not a conventional way. And that ergo, that's why functional medicine is so much more expensive, because the conventional way goes with insurance and all that. And this obviously does not. And it makes it a big challenge then, because people don't connect the fact that, okay, first of all, this is functional medicine. So this is why the cost is obviously higher, but, we're going to get to the bottom of things though. We're going to get to root causes. So take that into consideration. You want to go on many more years that way, or do we just want to try to get to the bottom of this?
That, and also it's a cost of mental health, right? Like, a lot of people are fearful of coming away from their medications because they become
very fearful,
identified by them. They're fearful because they now acquaint themselves with that identity. That is their identity. I have thyroid issues. So I would be on thyroid medication my entire life.
Yeah.
And that's a mental cost, right? Because
totally.
It's a hard switch to come from Western medicine. Western medicine has its place. I am not by any means saying that Western medicine is not a good thing. God forbid that anything happened to me and I needed to go into surgery. Western medicine is the way to go.
Right.
You know, but like it's really hard for people to peel away from that identity and be open to the fact that we are holistic practitioners. We don't have a medical degree, but we don't need one because we have the invested time. And yes, it's expensive for a reason because we spend so much time looking at all these markers and identifiers and these things that all play into a huge picture and are all pieces of your health that nobody's ever talked to you about before. Yeah. So yes, it's scary to come away from your medication, but we promise we can help with that, you know, those by baby steps, you know? Yeah.
That's so huge that you just said that too, because that, the wording you just said, they identify that way. I actually just had a client that was just telling me that. She's like, I don't know, on her form that she filled out with me, even, I don't know any other way. This is the only way that I know myself. I identify myself as being on all these meds. Started with thyroid meds and then went on, you know, a whole slew of other medications. And she's like, I don't know any other way. I'm like, I'm too scared to go off of them because I've been doing that for 15 years. So what, you know, how do I do that?
That's definitely something that I get a lot too. Because it's just been ingrained in them by the medical profession, because the medical profession knows so different. They know, okay, you've come to me with a symptom or a problem. I'm going to fix it the way that I know how, which is to give you what I've been trained in pharmaceutically, not, may I emphasize, not nutritionally or holistically, right? So anyway, I'm off my soapbox now. Ray, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say that same lady who saw me, who was like, you know, she was trying to like negotiate. She's like, well, can I get these labs and da, da, da. And I said, well, look, you know, first of all, I said, your doctor's going to want to draw blood, right? And you probably have done loads and loads of blood work and you've never really found anything significant. And I said, and probably you've had surgery. She said, oh yeah, 3 times. I've had like fibroids removed, like, and endometriosis and all these things. And she said, the first time I went in, the doctor's like, oh yeah, you'll be back. I know you're going to be back because I know we're going to have to operate on you again, because their training, we were just talking about them. Their training isn't designed to find root cause. And there's a wonderful TV show. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's a little hippie called New Amsterdam. It's about a hospital, a fictitious hospital in New York. And the medical director basically tries to revamp everything. And he gets into a lot of trouble with his board because obviously they don't want to change lives. Their business is save lives. And he kept trying to get that across to them. He said, look, we have to change these people's lives. And they're like, that's not our job. Our job is to save lives. And that to me, I just remember like the penny dropped and I was like, oh my God, that's the difference. Like allopathic care. Allopathic care is really like, okay, I've broken my leg and I need you to help, like do a scan, put me in a cast, get me out of here. Well, like you said, you've been in an accident, God forbid anything happened to you, you're rushed to the ER and you're seen. But it is not designed for being able to coach people, to be there for them. You know, someone said, well, why is your pricing like so much? That's a lot of money. And I'm like, I said, do you know any other doctor who's going to be on call for you whenever you send a message and I'm there and I'm replying to you and answering your question? Does your doctor do that? Like within 48 hours or less? I try to do it within less unless it's the weekend. But do you have anyone in your life that does, any healthcare provider that does that for you? And they're like, well, no one replies like that. No one's there on the, you know, the other end of an app, you know? So the cost associated with what we do, I keep saying, I was like, it isn't a cost, it's an investment. Like you're gonna put in 3 to 6 months of time working with someone like you, like the 3 of us. And instead of 20 years of being on medication and 25 grand later, and then having to be on multiple medications and probably another 100 grand later, right? You're going to invest whatever it is, 5 to 10 grand, maybe a little bit more, depending on what we find, and a little bit more time. You know, six months of your life is a drop in the ocean, a drop. You know, so like this next half of the year or the last 3-4 months of this year, because it's not half, we're already into like coming into September. So, you know, I always think like, okay, if we're thinking about like the future, before this year ends, like, are you going to make changes so that you end this year strong? And that knowing that changes can happen within like 3 weeks, like you can get answers in as quickly as 3 weeks. Like that's how fast it can happen. You can actually get a resolution and start seeing like, oh, okay, now I have a plan. Now I have a target to aim for, you know, because you run the 5, like the FDN way is to run the 5 labs, right? Like that's our ethos. We don't do the 1 lab at a time sort of way of doing things. We do the 5 labs because, you know, Reed says it. He says, if you do 1 lab, it's like looking for an intruder in only 1 room of your house. There's just no point doing that. You need to have a very clear picture of what you're looking for rather than, you know, well, I'll try this for right now and then I'll come back to it. And then it's just going to take so much longer. You're just going to end up taking like, instead of, you know, 3 months or 6 months, you might end up doing it for years. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We want to fast track people so that you don't spend the time that we have. Like for me, it was sort of like 15 years, 20 years. You know, I couldn't remember a time when I did not have an upset stomach, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add like to that another benefit of the investment is also like our job is to educate people to be their own medical advocates. Like our job is to teach people what these things mean and why things are happening or potentially happening and what metabolic chaos means and what those contributors are so that they feel empowered to go forth and either help spread the education or take better care of themselves and achieve longevity way, way more likely than they would have before. Because like you were saying, right, like I don't know any practitioner or doctor that would be on call for you to send them messages about questions they have about labs that they're looking over or reports that we're sending them. And we spent so much time like explaining stuff and what they mean, you know? So it's another huge benefit to investing and not costing yourself. You're investing in yourself. I love the way you put that. Can I ask a question though, guys?
Yeah.
Can I transition us into the dreaded talk of COVID? How can we address this with respect to the cost or investment of ourselves in something like what we do as FDNs, and how can it benefit us and help us with battling this crazy thing that we're all going through, you know, as a world, as humanity. What do you guys think? Like, what are some things that we could help people understand that with regards to cost and investment that we could potentially have better outcomes during this pandemic?
Well, I want to just say one thing before Angela does jump in. So Bree and I both have COVID. We've had it. Didn't really touch the sides. I didn't even have a fever. I think I had a headache, but I thought it was my period. So I didn't have any downtime at all. I got off a plane, I came home, I had a headache, and then about a week later, I lost my smell. So that was it for me. Like that was it. You know, it was not a big deal. And this is what, and people say, well, you were just in a lucky bubble and that drives me nuts. And I'm like, no, I know how to be the CEO of my health. I don't have to rely on medication. I know that my body needs vitamins. I know it needs vitamin C in order to function, and that we don't make our own vitamin C. So we have to supplement or eat lots of it, right? Because we don't create it ourselves. I know we need zinc when we are run down, and we need our immunity to work, and we need our gut immunity to work because we got 80 to 90% of our immunities in the gut, right? And we have markers that can tell us about that. Secretory IgA is one of the things that we look at on a gut health test. It tells us if our gut immunity isn't working. If it's too low, that means we're susceptible to infection. So when people say, oh, you were lucky, I'm like, no, I wasn't lucky. I just know how to build immunity. So I'm going to leave it there and let Angela take it from there, because I could really go off on a rant about this.
Yeah. I really want to hear, like when people decide after they get through the whole like battle of the cost to work with you, like what is your experience with your specialty, which is hormones and thyroid specifically? Like what is your experience with this in relation to COVID or vaccinations or all that stuff?
I've seen kind of both sides. The clients that have been working with me that are, you know, much further along, we've done a lot of investigating, done the testing, all that stuff. Those are the ones that I really notice have been able to battle easier if they have gotten it, or have been exposed to it or whatever, they definitely, their immune system is so much better. Anyone who's been, even early on, working with me, who's just kind of starting, if they have gotten, which I've had a few that have, they really struggled. They really had a hard time getting through it. One was actually hospitalized. So I can vouch for that. I can see a big difference between, someone who is working on their health overall, not just thyroid health, but health overall, especially building that immune system up. And gut health is so, so crucial in this case. And those are the ones that I see that, they do so much better. I have not had COVID, but I was around it a lot. I got exposed a lot. I always thought myself, when I was a kid, I was the kid that was getting sick all the time. I was constantly getting strep throat or something. I was always getting sick, and had pneumonia numerous times and all that. And once I started getting into functional medicine, man, that's been a different thing for me. It's rare for me to get anything. And I know that because I've just done this overall overhaul of my own health. And that's why I'm so adamant with my clients. Like, look, yes, can you still get COVID? Absolutely. You can still get it. There's no question. You can still get it as healthy as you are. I definitely have seen people that have battled it way easier, and not even had symptoms. If you think about it, for a lot of people, that's the case, like even with the flu, even with other things, you can really battle things much easier when you have your gut health on point, when you have your health overall, you've built that immune system. There are going to be a lot of things that you're going to battle so much easier with. And that's why, like, for me, obviously I work with thyroid stuff, but we don't look just at thyroid stuff. And sometimes my clients start with me, they're like, we're talking about gut health. We're talking about liver health. What is this? It's not my thyroid. And I'm like, oh, but hey, there's a connection. Everything is connected. And that's why I love functional medicine, because everything's connected. And let me tell you, your immune system will pay the price if you don't look at everything overall.
Well said. Go ahead, Ray.
I like using car analogies. So I was just going to say, you can't only focus on the tires of the car. You got to focus on, the oil and the engine and the type of gas you're putting into it. And that's how I think a body is. A body, you've got to be really mindful of all the different components and make sure that they are all working synergistically, and and everything's tuned up. You've got to fine tune it all. So to me, I think there's someone on the chat asking, Sylvie, saying, do we think our immune system is compromised? And it depends. I don't know if but I think a lot of people that I know who live normal lives, I have a really good friend who lives a normal life, and her normal is like eating pizza and KFC and Burger King and fast food all the time, and hydrogenated fats and lots of starches. And I would say, someone like that is immune compromised. They're carrying fat around their middles.
Absolutely.
So that's an immune compromised person. And people who eat like that, that's what you call your standard Western diet. It's not healthy. It's convenient, but it's not healthy. You're not getting any real nutrition out of it. You're just being filled up, so that you feel full, but you're not really getting anything. There's no vegetables. There's not much going on there in the way of like actually nurturing your microbiome, your gut microbiome, which requires fiber. It requires lean protein, and it requires good fat. So how can you, I guess most of the Western world, I would say, is immune compromised. Maybe. That's probably an accurate way to describe it. But just want to say one thing, exposure does not guarantee infection. As Angela has proven. Right? Even if you've got bugs, right? And we clean them up, but we don't work on your immunity, you're gonna get more bugs, because we haven't solved the real issue. It's not the presence of the bugs or the exposure to the bugs. I'm in Mexico. I'm technically exposed to a lot of bugs all day, every day. Have I succumbed to my bugs? No. You always hear about people ending up with Montezuma's revenge in Mexico. Hasn't happened. I'm taking all my probiotics, all the things that I know I need in order to maintain immunity in, let's say, a hostile environment. So exposure does not guarantee infection. It's my two cents.
So really quick, I think there's two really important things that we should acknowledge in what you just said too and touched on. And you too, Angela, is another reason to invest in people like us is because we understand a very different meaning of what health means. Okay. So in my opinion, because I have had so many people come to me and say, oh, I was the healthiest. I work out, I eat good, I do all the right things, right? And I still got COVID and it knocked me on my ass. And I thought I was going to die. I literally had one of my best friends just went through this whole thing. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's totally awesome. You're taking great care of yourself. Like, I'm so proud of you. But what is the type of health that we're talking about here? And that's what we teach people. It's not just exercising or nutrient satisfaction or getting good sleep. All of that is essential, but it's like how we look at the body. What all those are symptoms, kind of in a good way. But what is the root cause of good health? Well, we are able to show you via data, actual data of what health your understanding or what your body or what definition of health is at that point in time. And that's why we believe that we could help the body fight this virus, but also many other things a lot better if we are granted the opportunity to look at that for you as a patient or a client and say, here's what we see. Here's what we think we could do. Here's what this definition of health is for you. And secondarily to that, another benefit of the investment is we're trained to only supplement very specific supplements based on that data. And they're not like, this is the other thing people say, well, I take supplements, I take vitamin C, I take, zinc. They're getting it from CVS and Costco. The problem is they think they're doing well, and that's great. Right. They're on the right thought process. I want to commend people for doing that. But that is not health because they don't understand the fillers and all the other stuff. And that's another benefit. It's like we are very targeted on our supplementation and the quality of supplementation that we would do for our people. And that contributes to the idea of health in this case and with COVID and with vaccinations and all the things that go with today's world.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the supplement thing. I'm so glad you brought that up because I get asked a lot about, hey, what can I take for this? What can I take for that? And as much as I'm like, I'm so glad that you want to do something for your health, but at the same time, there is no willy-nilly with supplements. There is no like, oh, just take this for this. We're trained on, we will give you specific recommendations, specific supplements, not just like you need like zinc, but like you actually need this brand with this dosage with this. Like we are honed in on that for a reason, that's how we're trained. Yes, there are some things like, a lot of people need probiotic and a lot of, there's things like that. I totally, I don't argue with that at all. However, there are specific things that we target. Like you said, we target specific ways and specific things based off of your test. So that's the beauty of the functional medicine world is like, and that's how we're trained. Everything is so targeted and customized for you. There's no guessing. There's a reason. There's a method to our madness for every single thing that we recommend for you based off of your own test results. It's all customized. It's not a willy-nilly, take this, do this.
One size fits all.
And like you said, not dogging Costco, but don't go to Costco and get your supplements. I mean, like you mentioned, there's so many fillers and there's not enough product actually in the pills, which I've seen. And that, it doesn't work like that. And that's why we're so like, that's how we're trained too. We're so diligent on, I recommend this one, but you need this particular one, not the one, from CVS or whatever. There's a reason why we do it that way.
Hence why we are so expensive to work with, but it is a very, very good investment. I assure you.
Yeah.
Someone asked a question about the thyroid, like she was asking about specific supplements for thyroid. I think it was Sylvie again, but again, the thyroid, we have to think about gut health because, the thyroid hormone is produced in the gut, and a lot of women with thyroid problems tend to have issues with gut problems. And then they also have issues with mold, and we have to screen for all these things. So we screen, we don't just recommend supplements willy-nilly, like you said. We have to screen to figure out, well, why do you have a thyroid problem? It's not just treating the thyroid. We have to figure out what's driving. That's the thing, that the thyroid problem is a symptom of a bigger, of like the root problem, and we don't know what that is. So we can't just recommend supplements for the thyroid. There's some general principles, you need vitamin D, you'll need selenium, iodine, but again, depending on what we, exactly, mineral balancing, those sort of like basics are going to be, necessary, but again, that's general. That's not for you specifically.
Yep.
People are always so surprised when they work with me. They're like, "You're talking about gut health with thyroid," and I'm like, "Yeah."
Okay. This one is, what supplements can you take to detox from the vaccination?
Can I jump in on that one? Because this is my jam, right?
Yeah, you go.
So I want everybody to know straight up, I am not an anti-vaxxer. Okay, straight up, not anti-vaccines. I am, however, extremely skeptical about this experimental, unapproved, and even though it said they got FDA approval 2 days ago, it's not even actually FDA approved. That's all sneakiness, and I share a lot about that on my personal Facebook page. But this treatment or therapy, it's actually pretty interesting what it does to the body, and detoxifying from it is extremely difficult. I saw something 2 hours ago actually about how to get rid of the graphene oxide that's in there, and I will share it with people if they want, because I can forward it on to you. It's in my Instagram, so I can forward it on to anybody who wants to see how to detoxify from graphene oxide, which is one of the main toxic elements that is in this vaccine. There are also a bunch of other things that are very unpleasant that we don't want in our bodies that attach to like our lymph and start creating havoc. And Nathan, the doctor that I work with, so I work with a functional medicine doctor. He has been working in a COVID ward from the outset, and he has never been sick, not one day throughout this entire thing, even though he has been exposed over and over and over. And he actually saw some of the first earliest cases of COVID back in January 2020. But because he gets good sleep, he exercises, he uses vitamin infusions on himself. So he takes a lot of vitamin C. So he has been pretty much bulletproof throughout the entire thing. But he is now in a COVID ward where he sees people succumbing to this, people who are succumbing with lots of vitamin D deficiencies, melatonin issues, lots of inflammatory conditions, so diabetes, heart disease, cardiovascular, all these sorts of different inflammatory chronic lifestyle diseases. And now what he's seeing is more and more people showing up with strokes, paralysis, cerebrovascular events, and also a ton of these cognitive and shingles and all these weird unexplained symptoms that he's probably one of the only doctors that's connecting the dots, because no one's asking like, well, when did this start? And when he checks back, like, well, it all kind of coincided with when I got my vaccination. So he's been very alert to the fact that no one else is picking up on it, but he's making notes of it and trying to gently wake people up to the fact that, you've just taken something that creates so much, it creates an inflammatory storm in the body, right? More than the COVID, because that you at least develop like antibodies to, and you move on, and Bree and I are currently bulletproof as far as we're concerned.
Right.
I walk around with no fear. I'm like, everyone's like, oh my God, why are you wearing a mask? I was like, I don't need one. I was like, first of all, a virus is like a 40th the size of a hair follicle, right? And a hair follicle can pass through a mask. Therefore, wearing a mask is completely idiotic. It is a mechanism of control. And like I said, this is going to be totally unfiltered and uncensored, right? It is totally a mechanism of control. They are trying to to basically kill off economies, get people not working, not being independent any longer, and then becoming dependent on government. And then the government can dictate what they do to you. And I, for one, don't want anyone telling me what to do with my body or my life. And I don't want anyone on my watch being told what to do with their bodies or their lives when there are better ways. In Mexico, ivermectin is $5 for 20 pills. Like, there are so many solutions to COVID, right? It's $5. You walk into any pharmacy over the counter, walk out with 20. And I keep hearing people who are using it and are getting over it in like 2 or 3 days. So there are tons of ways to stay immune and to stay healthy and not to believe the propaganda that we need to be vaccinated. We don't. End of.
Angela, did you want to share anything? I have a response to that as well.
So what was the question? Was detox from the vaccine,
yes.
Right?
What supplements can we take to detox from the vaccination?
So, I mean, again, it's tough because detoxing is a huge topic. And I'm not a huge proponent of just willy-nilly going on supplements to detox. The big thing I always say is, first of all, you got to get your liver functioning like tenfold. Anything you can do to get your liver optimized even using like fast oil packs and a sauna and things to get the liver moving better and things like that outside of supplementation is probably one of the biggest ways that you can do. Sweating, anything to get the lymph and the liver moving is going to be probably my go-to thing. Then let's just start taking supplements. When you start talking about supplements like that too, it's so person dependent. I mean, it could be, do you need an anti-inflammatory? Do you need, an immune booster now because you inflamed everything? And so that's a tough one when it comes to necessarily talking about supplements for that. I personally feel like you need to get your gut going well. So stop the inflammation in the gut. So eat non-inflammatory foods, do all the things to get your gut right, and do all the things to get your liver moving, to get the flow of everything moving, to me is definitely key.
That is so wonderfully stated, both of you. And then if I may add, something that I've been doing in my practice with my folks, again, I am not of the mindset that this can be detoxed at all. I don't think that the science behind what's in these things is even detoxable, because it's a messenger RNA, and that's designed to send messages that are genetically altering, right? So there's not necessarily a detoxification process from that per se. There may be detoxification process from other components. That being said, what I have done is with my clients that I'm working with now that have gotten it, we have their lab work from before they've gotten COVID or the vaccination. And then we retest to see how the functions of the body have changed. And then we compare the labs, right? So because we're going based off data. And again, I'm not somebody who just openly supplements people because I have an idea of what may be going on. So to answer the question, supplementation or detoxing of the vaccination and or of COVID for me will the data that I'm given from my client's test result after. Again, it's expensive, but for me, I would want to know what is going on with my body before and after vaccination. And I tell people all the time, go do what's best for you. You got to do what's right for you and your family. Go get a vaccination, don't get a vaccination, whatever. I love you anyways. My job is to give you the best possible terrain to deal with COVID and or vaccinations. And that's what I will do for you.
Yeah. If I could pick out one thing, I would say, you could try a binder. Is it going to be gold? I don't know. It could be. But for some, it might be, a huge thing for them. But I mean, if I had to pick out one, it'd probably be something like that. But like you said, I want to see data to really go, you need these supplements or whatever. I'd like to have data to be able to back that up, even if it wasn't the vaccine. I mean, other things, you don't know that. Can you detox everything? Everyone's body's so different. So what you could do and what I could do might be two totally different things, even though we might have the same exact thing going on. So it's very, very person dependent.
Yeah. For those people that don't know what a binder is, who are joining and listening, a binder is an excellent resource to help bind all the yucky stuff that we're working to get out of the body and detox the body of. It binds it all up in a nice little ball and allows for our bodies to process it through our digestive system and release out through poop.
But ideally, we want you pooping twice a day before we put you on a binder. So you need to, if you're not pooping and we're binding it all up, it's just sitting there and not doing it. That's no good. So we want you to be pooping twice a day. So you got to become a super pooper.
You've got to be a pooper.
Yeah, you got to be a super pooper before you can get on a binder.
Yes. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I think that was a pretty good explanation of what we can do to detox or not from a vaccination. You guys see any more questions?
No, I don't think there are any in the chat, but I just wonder if there's anyone on our Zoom, like Lori or Catherine, do you want to add anything?
Hi, so I'm in the dark. It's really quite late here in the UK. So I'm just a bit worried that I've had the jabs, and so is my husband. I mean, just listening to you talking about the vaccination and things, I'm getting a little bit freaked out that, should I be freaking out? Or maybe that's just me because I'm really anxious all the time. I just thought I'd mention because I had the vaccination before I came into any of, I didn't know anything. Everyone around me is all having the vaccination to protect ourselves. So, obviously that was a thing to do. So
the great thing about functional medicine is that it can only help. right? Like, so, you know, you're giving your body the best possible fighting chance against all sorts of things. It's not about being specific. So, and this is the thing about the FDN way as well. Like, we do not treat anything specifically. We work on optimizing overall function. So if we can get the body working to the best of its ability, then theoretically, right, you should be healthier and happier than someone who has not tried our intervention. Right? So you stand a better chance than someone who's been vaccinated, who is not changing the way that they eat, who, you know, so you are basically working on changing how you eat, reducing inflammation, cleaning up your gut, improving your overall immunity. So you're going to do a lot better off than someone who's been vaccinated and isn't doing all of that. So I hope that you take comfort in that, like knowing that actually I'm doing everything I possibly can to stay well. And I'm following the principles of DRESS, which are diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and specific supplements. I'm following DRESS. And once I do that, then all should be well.
I work with a lot of women that have had the vaccine. They've had both. And, you know, we're still working on all the things, like you said, DRESS, diet, rest, exercise, sleep, and stress reduction, all those things. When you're doing all those things, you have a much better chance of getting through all that stuff than someone who's not working on those things. So that's why I still, you know, with my clients, I'm still like, yeah, we're still going to work on, we're not going to stop. We're still going to work on everything we normally do, all the things to help you with your overall health, regardless. So that you, just like Ray said, you just see in a much better chance when you're working on all those things. Definitely do not be scared because, you know, that just creates more anxiety around it. But like I said, I work with a lot of women who have done it and they're doing okay because we're working on all the other things to help them.
So should we wrap and say thank you to everyone for being here?
Yeah,
and for the great
questions.
And for Angela donating her time to us and being amazing and beautiful. Everybody who's not following her, go follow her on social media. Her, what are they called? The Reels?
Her reels. Yeah, her reels are incredible. Angela's reels are the best.
You're hilarious.
Like, you have nailed it. Like, you are like the reel master.
I'm having fun with it, which is so funny because when I first started doing it, but you'll notice, if you go look at my very first reels, they're hideous. I'm not going to lie. They're so bad. Like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, I need to take those down. And my coach, they're like, no. You don't ever take reels down. You keep them on. And I'm like, they're so bad though. I mean, really bad. So I've grown. I will say I've grown, but I'm having fun with it now. I'm just going with it.
All right, ladies. Love you both. And
thanks, Lori. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Bree. Bye, you guys. See you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah.